Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking time today and join us at yet another Business Central Office Hour call. We actually have more than 300 attendees that have registered for today. We are super excited about that. But before we jump into the actual topic of today, we just have a few topics we wanted to talk about. We're in March right now, and as you've probably heard, maybe seen, we have released the public preview of the 2023 release wave 1 of Business Central. And what we really would like you to do, all partners on the call today, is test it, try it out. We really want more feedback on the current release that we have out in preview. So what you should do is you should go to Collaborate, sign up, try out the preview. We have created a separate Yammer group for the preview. So if you have questions, things that you want to ask us about, or feedback you want to give us, do it on Yammer or give us feedback on Collaborate. And if you are thinking, what is Collaborate? How do I actually do? Then the link, the AKA link, BC Preview will give you all the description and guidelines on how to actually register, sign up, and get access to the public preview. Now, another thing we really want to highlight is that we are only a few weeks away from the April release 2023 release wave 1, which will be in market. And on March 29th, we will actually run live with the Business Central launch event. So these days we are in studio recording a lot of sessions. We have a little over 25 sessions on various topics on what is new in Business Central in the April release. We will run these sessions live from Wednesday, March 29th, and you can already now register and get an access link if you go to aka.ms/bcle. So make sure to register, sign up. What we will do this year, we got a lot of feedback from you. We will actually have an overview session when we kick it all live on the Wednesday, March 29th. And from there on, you can join, you can view all the sessions on demand, and we will also run a couple of live Q&A sessions where you can come and ask our program managers, our engineers, subject matter experts questions specific to what's new in the April release. So with that, let's jump to the topic of today. It's going to be all about onboarding your customers to Business Central, and to take you through that topic and answer all your questions, I have Søren Alexandersen. Make sure to pop your questions into the Q&A window, and with that, I will hand it over to Søren.
Thank you very much, Lotte. I will try to send my camera feed through here, so hoping I will show my face to whoever is watching. And all right, let's talk about onboarding customers to Business Central. And today is sort of a special edition because we're talking, we're going deep on one specific feature. But first, let's just sort of define what we mean about onboarding and what it sort of means for partners and customers, and what our vision is. So onboarding can be many things, but it's really about how, as a customer, you discover Business Central, how you get started with the product, maybe taking through trial, and how you eventually end up purchasing the product and get to a productive state with Business Central. Now, what we're trying to do for onboarding is try to make this as smooth as possible, so it takes as short time as possible with as little friction as possible. And obviously, you have customers out there that are very complex and you need to do customizations and all kinds of things, but you also have customers that are ready to self-serve. Like, they go to a website, they discover a solution that they think is right for them, they want to explore what it's all about, and they're ready to swipe their credit card and get up and running by themselves. So that segment is on the rise. So please, when you watch this, it's up to you to think about, does this apply to my types of customers? Because obviously there's no one size fits all, but we do see there's a growing need for self-serve. So really that's what this onboarding theme is all about. It's about trying to attack mostly the self-serve kind of customers, and we think that actually also for the more complex customers that there are more self-serve opportunities. And the reason is, apart from happier customers that pay for value that they perceive as being valuable, is that there's a lot of strain on the resources in the partner community. So every single hour you can offload from your consultants to the customers to do self-serve, your consultants can do, I won't say more important work, but more difficult work that is not so easy to hand out to the customers themselves, where you need to handhold the customers and describe the value. So what you should take from this really as a overarching theme is, how can I take all the knowledge from my consultants and put it into an app or apps for App Source that you can load onto Business Central, so that the customer with that app installed can serve themselves, so they can be guided digitally, kind of like a digital consultant. That's really what you should think about here. So let's dive. So we'll come back to some of the elements and the onboarding framework as such, but we're going to deep dive on a specific new thing we've done that's already live. So you can do this now, and the documentation is on its way. Should be live within a few days. Now, we're going to talk about the concept of sign-up context. And what do we mean by that? Well, we mean when someone comes to the Microsoft website and signs up to a Business Central trial, the context is the Microsoft website. When someone comes to your website, like your partner website, the sign-up context is that website. But there's more to it, because until now, it's not been possible for us or you in that sense to also capture more information about that prospect, like which industry is that user in, which system are they using today, what do they want to see in Business Central. You could capture that, of course, but today you'd have to spin up a trial through a CSP as a partner at least, and add these elements that you think the customer wants to see, and add demo data, add the apps that are relevant, and so on. With the new sign-up context feature, we're sort of changing that game so you can automate that a lot more. So in sort of concept, what it looks like is, imagine you have your website where you ask the customer or the prospect at this point some questions. The customer or the prospect answers these questions in the profiler and hits the start trial button. Now, what happens is that they're redirected. At least that's the idea. And this week, I'm going to show you this in just a second, how it actually works. So we do a real live demo. Now, they're redirected to sign up at dynamics.com. This is where you sign into your existing AAD tenant or create a new one if you're not a Microsoft Cloud customer until this point. Now, then standard trial provisioning of Business Central will happen because you're redirected to Business Central, and that's when the provisioning will happen. And then what's new is that we can install an App Source app that you as a reseller have built that really encapsulates the entire trial onboarding experience. And it stores the answers from the profiler in a system table in Business Central. And those answers, your app during install time can react on these answers, which means that you can now pivot the solution to do A or B, depending on what is chosen by the user. So now you can do the profiling on your website and pivot the experience. So it really becomes your experience that is ready to greet and onboard the user. So let's actually do a live demo of that. So hoping that the demo gods will be with me today. So what you see here is just a Power App I did to sort of mimic a website from a partner. And I just asked 3 questions here to the user saying, hey, what are you interested in seeing? Well, I'm interested in seeing basic trade or project management or warehousing. I'm just selecting one of these for now. The idea is just that you can see how these values are transferred into Business Central so you can react on them. And I'm going to say I use Excel, and I'm going to say I have between 6 and 10 users using Business Central. So you can ask anything here, whatever you think is important for you to be able to pivot and create and show the user the experience that they would expect to see. You can now emphasize certain features in Business Central, bring up certain checklist items based on exactly these things. So before we hit the start trial button and go through the sign up experience, I just want to show how this works technically. So we're going to get a bit technical now. And so I have this button here that will show a lot of technical stuff. So this is super busy, I know, but I'm going to talk you through it. So when I click this button, what really happens, let me just do it right away. I navigate to this URL, and you probably recognize it. It's a normal signup.microsoft.com where you sign up to become a Microsoft Cloud customer or sign into an existing tenant. Now, as part of this URL, there's some stuff going on you need to know. First thing is we use what we call the sign up context parameter. And you already recognize it now that it has some of the values that I chose over here on the left side. So let me just actually copy this and bring it into Visual Studio Code because it's a bit easier to read. Let me just format this for you. Here we go. Oops, I need to select the right keys here. Here we go, and zooming in a bit. So you notice that this is a JSON string with key value pairs that identify an app by its ID. This is the app that I would like to load for, like when users have selected the things that they've selected in the profiler, I want to load this specific app. It may be the same for different scenarios or maybe be different apps. Only you will know. Then I should also specify a name. This is a unique name that identifies this sign-up context. And here you should use your publisher name, maybe in combination with your app, so that there's a unique value that could be tracked here. Also, you need to specify what is the country code. The reason this is important is that your website doesn't know anything about the country of the tenant, the customer, or the user is going to create or sign into. So you can only determine what is the intended country that is being signed into. And what we will do on our side is, when we provision the trial, is that we will look at this country code in the sign-up context parameter and see, does it match the AAD country of the user? And does it also match the supported countries of the app? If there's a match, or if there's not a match, we'll fail and the provisioning will fail and the user will see an error that the countries don't match. If it matches, we'll continue with provisioning the trial experience. And here's another important parameter that has to be present. It basically says that the user has accepted the end user license agreement for this app. So unlike what I'm doing here in this example, you need to show or give the user a chance to see this end user license agreement before they hit that start trial button. And here you'll notice that my 3 parameters from my questions, or three values are that sort of represent what I asked the user. And you can call these anything. You can call them P1, P2, P3, or whatever you have, whatever makes sense to you. It's important that you note what you call them because you'll be looking for them inside Business Central eventually. All right, let me just go back here. And now you'll see this JSON string here that you've built based on what you've chosen, what the user has chosen here. You'll notice when I modify here, you'll notice that it changes, right? So let me just, again, select warehousing. I want to say QuickBooks, and I want to say 6 to 10 users. Now, now it gets a little bit more tricky. So the sign up context as a JSON string needs to be URI encoded, and that's what you see here. It's a regular URI encoding that you can do through code, of course. Great, that's sort of step number one. Now let's jump a bit. After you have gone to the signup.microsoft.com website and you've signed into your tenant or created a new tenant, you're redirected to Business Central. This is the redirect URL that you'll see here, where we will pass in some information to Business Central. And here you'll notice that we also add the sign up context, the encoded sign up context that you saw up here. Great. But that's not all, because for this redirect to work, the entire redirect URL, including the already URI encoded sign up context, needs to be URI encoded. So if we jump down here, what happens after the sign up is done is that this redirect URL or and RU parameter specifies that after the sign up, please redirect the user to this URL. And you'll notice that this is the URI encoded version of the redirect URL. In effect, that means that the sign up context value itself is double encoded. It's a bit technical, but it will describe all this in the documentation so you know which steps to follow. Eventually, you'll end up with the URL that looks somewhat like this. And that's the one that is navigated to when we hit that start trial. All right, long story. So let's now go ahead and actually sign in to the tenant. I already have a tenant, but there's no Business Central on this tenant for now. Well, let me just, it signs in. It says you already have a license. It's because I've gone through this scenario before. If I was a totally new to BC prospect, I would of course be assigned the trial license at this point. But now I'm ready to be redirected. Now I'm signed into my tenant. Now I get redirected, and you'll notice here. So what happens now is this is when provisioning a Business Central takes place, and after that is done, the app will be installed. You'll notice here in the URL all the stuff that was part of the profiler. You'll see here all the encoded stuff with the country code, the EULA accept, the interest, and all the questions and answers and so on. Now, these are going to be stored inside Business Central. So now you see it's already done. Now the client is booting. And just in total transparency, I'm just going to switch browser window now. The app I chose to install here is just an app from one of the Danish partners, Avikion. I just had to choose some app here. I know that this app doesn't bring an onboarding experience as such. I just wanted to show you what does it look like when that app is installed. So going back to Business Central now, you can see it's successfully loaded. I didn't get an error. That means it also provisioned the app correctly, and we can actually see here that the Use Dynamics app is installed. Now imagine now that it was your app, and your app was able to detect that sign up context data and do stuff with it. Let's take a look at that sign up context data. So now I'm just going to run this system table where we're storing the sign up data. So let's just check what has been stored in it. You'll recognize the exact same key value pairs as we had in the sign up context JSON. So these now reside in here in this system table. And that means when we're provisioning, when your app is being installed, you can look into this system table and see, oh, what did the user select as their interest? Oh, they selected project management. You know what? Let me add some great checklist items for the banner, for the welcome banner that explains why Business Central is great for project management. And you can imagine how you could take it from there. You could ask all kinds of things and then cater to that specific user, to their expectation. You could even choose not to start in Kronos, but to start in my company instead. If you want to sort of skip the evaluation company and go directly to my company and have a checklist that is based on, bringing in data into BC or somehow else bring the customer to sort of productive state. So it really comes down to your imagination of how can you make the trial and the onboarding experience more relevant for the specific user. You could even build a window here that once the user is ready to engage and take the next step and buy a license, you could embed a Shopify payment window or something like that, where you could transact the license depending on what kind of backend systems you have in place for that kind of thing. So this is really a way to, first of all, sell Business Central to customers speaking their language, so to speak, by reacting to these sign-up context values. All right. With that, I think I'll skip back to the slides and talk a little bit about what the elements are that you should consider. Of course, the welcome banner being the first thing the user sees, either in an eval company or in a non-evaluation company. Consider which checklist items to load. And I should say, when you use a sign-up context like I just showed you, where you define it, we don't load any checklist items for any users, for any roles. That only comes when you load the standard trial from the Microsoft website. But if you provide your own specific name for the sign-up context, we won't load any checklist items. Then you have decided to take control of the onboarding experience, take control of the trial experience. So you must decide which checklist items to show. We're planning some improvements for you to be able to also plan or decide which role center to show as the immediate role center. Right now, it will land in the business manager evaluation role center if you land in Kronos. It's important for you to have full controls. We're planning to do some changes to empower you to have that, because that will actually enable you to pivot the experience even more. You could ask the user about what kind of persona they are, and you could sort of pivot the experience accordingly. So if they're a sales manager, they may want to see certain things in their checklist and also in that immediate role center that they're seeing. So I think some of the most important things is consider the checklist content. What is it you want to show the user based on this sign-up context? Consider using video, of course, in the checklist, and use assisted setups all you can. You've heard us talk about assisted setups many times before, but it's really important that the checklist is not a super long checklist. Like, you should consider not having more than 7 to 8 items in your checklist. If you need to ask more things, use assisted setups and use that, let's call it the horizontal mode of adding a wizard-like approach. Click next to ask what needs to be asked. Consider using assisted setups to really ask the user what they want to do, also with Business Central, how they want to configure things. Do you want to use a specific piece of the functionality? If not, well, don't load the demo data for that. Consider loading demo data in a sort of just-in-time fashion. You could even load a config package sort of through the checklist and show the video to the user while they're waiting. There's a lot of different things you can do once you're in the role center, once your app is loaded. It's important to know, of course, that at this point in time, when users sign up to your trial or to our trial, our combined trial experience this way, you don't have a relationship with them at that point. Of course, they can leave the contact details on their website or on your website, so you can track them and call them, what have you. But you don't have sort of a Business Central relationship. You don't have CSP relationship with them yet. You can't log into their environment and do things. So you should think that into the checklist experience as well, that you would establish that kind of relationship when they're ready to do so. most importantly, you should be able to track how far have they come. So really use telemetry all you can in your app, so you know, oh, have they gone through the elements in the checklist? What are they doing in Business Central at this point? Because your app, from the ISV perspective, even though you're a reseller, from an app publisher perspective, you can monitor your telemetry. So make sure you do that and use that in your nurturing of these users as well. I won't go through the rest of the elements here. You should also, of course, check out the documentation of our onboarding elements, so you familiarize yourself with them if you don't use them already. I think we should open up for questions. So I will go to Q&A. I will just, excuse me a second while I just stop sharing here and share a new window.
We have a couple of questions, and everybody, please continue to add questions or feedback in the Q&A window, because we have time for more questions than we have already. So there's a question here, Søren. Will the trial sign up work if a customer has a non-AAD email address, for example, a company@gmail.com? This is reality for so many small businesses.
Yeah, that's a super good question. We've had it before, and right now, and until now, for a long time in the past, we've only allowed, let's say, business email addresses. We don't have any concrete plans to open up for Gmail, Hotmail, that kind of accounts. Though we are investigating if we should, meaning that of course you could expect some kind of drop off if you don't have that kind of business address. There are some complications to it if we decide to go that way, because then we don't have that tenant or the BC environment mapped to a tenant. And what happens then if they want to go live? How can we make that, let's say, private email initiated tenant become owned by, if they even have, maybe the customer already has a Microsoft 365 subscription, for example, or have a cloud tenant, but they just decide to use a private email. How do we merge those two at the end? So we, as I said, we're looking into it if we should open up for Gmails and that kind of thing, but we don't have any specific plans to do it.
So
all right.
Yeah. Do you see there's another, I don't know if it was more comment. I don't know exactly where in your presentation this question got added, but it says any person can have access to this page to have a BC trial environment. I don't know if there was probably a specific time in your demo, but I did not see that.
Right. Okay. So maybe I can try to answer from what I think the question is. So notice that this is just a plain Microsoft trial in the sense like of what is actually loaded, meaning it's a bit the same like if you went to the Microsoft website and started the trial and then loaded the app afterwards, except you wouldn't have the chance to use the sign up context to sort of pivot the experience. But from a license and trial perspective, it's still what we call a Microsoft trial. So there's no, and that's also why there's no cost for you to do it. It's just like spinning up a trial on the Microsoft website. It's just considered branded like the way you like to sort of brand it in terms of the checklist and the welcome experience. So that means that yes, if a person would be able to start a trial on a customer tenant today, then this doesn't change that. There are some settings you can do on your tenant that sort of limits who can start trials and or not, but that is not changing with this capability.
There's another question, Søren, which goes, so if I want to load several of our apps, I can make a demo app that includes the other apps directly within App Source, right? Because we don't want our prospects to spin up several times. Or do you have thoughts on another way to handle this with multiple apps?
Right. That's a great question. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, so for now the limitation is you can specify one app ID, and if you want to load more, you need to have set the dependency tree in your app JSON to, so that they will be loaded. So, and that will work like it will work on normal app source. If you go to app source and pull your app, and it will pull the dependency apps with it. This works the same way. So we respect that kind of dependency tree. I think we'll need to see how this sort of plays out, and if there's a need to sort of specify apps more directly, saying I want these 5 app IDs to be loaded. There could be some challenges with that, but let's see. For now, we're starting with the one app ID, and of course, it means that you have to consider this dependency tree in situations where you wouldn't normally have some dependencies, and it also means that you can't. Of course, you can depend on another ISV's app, but you probably don't want to do that for the end user license agreement perspectives I showed before. But there are some complexities there that you could easily imagine as a solution where you have your app, but what you want to present with the customer is also app A, B, and C from 3 other vendors. Like, what if you want to present that whole thing? You want to, I just don't want to name drop it. Let's say you want to load Continue Payment Management or some other things with your solutions to show a combined package, and you have agreement with Continue that you can do that. There'll be no easy way for you to do that now, but that could be one of the next evolutions of this feature. I hope that was answered to your question, Michael.
This is a short question here. How long is the trial for?
Yeah, so this comes back to this being a Microsoft trial. Like if you signed up on the Microsoft.com website. So unlike in CSP, where there's this 30-day limit and some extension possibilities and so on, since you're not involved with, let's say, the business aspect of the trial at this point, it's a Microsoft trial. The same limits apply, which means that if you're only in an evaluation company, only in Kronos, it's unlimited. If you venture into my company or start into a non-evaluation company, then the 30-day clock starts. So that's exactly the same.
So there's still room for more questions. So please do. We have 2 questions still, but please do add more questions. There's a question here. If a person decides to buy Business Central, they can use Business Central trial and change the status to a full license? Question mark.
Yes, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky because you need to bring some capabilities to let the customer get in contact with you, so they can actually buy the trial. How digitalized you want to do that is up to you. You could have a checklist item that says, hey, if you're in trouble, this is where you contact us, and hey, you want to take the next step, you want to buy a license, contact us here. Maybe you want to have a link directly to a Shopify cart where you have added some backend services where they can swipe their credit card and buy the license. And what you do behind the scenes is you enable the CSP relationship and you transact the license on the customer's behalf. There's no, let's say, new fancy monetization license payment service and all of this. So it's all as it used to be. So if what you think is right here is to make sure the customer can contact you when they're ready to buy the license, that's what you should make sure is easy to find in the product.
So a question here: if a prospect already has Business Central, how would it affect them starting a vertical ISV trial that includes Business Central?
See, if you already have a Business Central environment on your tenant, you can't go through the sign-up experience. If you actually just today on your tenant with BC, if you try to go to the sign-up page on Microsoft.com and try to sign up like I just did, just without the whole profiling thing, you'll just get signed into your existing tenant. It won't provision anything new. So that also means that if a prospect starts a trial using what I just showed, and they don't like that but want to try something else from another partner, they can't do that. They first have to remove that Business Central environment. So that's something that we're investigating, maybe as an evolution, to say, hey, what if I want to compare solutions? I'm not a paying customer yet, but I want to compare partner solution A, B, and C. I want to start one trial. What happens when I want to start the next one? Should I get a question saying you want to start another trial side by side? You may be still bound by the same 30 days if you switch to my company. It gets complicated. So that's why we haven't ventured into that yet. But it's a good question, because it's sort of fair. Until now, trials have been sort of partner-led when you want to have IP and ISV solutions on it, except if a customer went to our website and loaded apps manually. But so in that sense, it's not different from today. So once you've started what we call a viral trial on the Microsoft.com website, which this essentially is, then that environment lives and you can't start another one until the old one is removed. So I hope that answered the question.
Mm-hmm. Another question, Søren. What if after the trial, the customer wants to transfer Business Central data to another AAD? How can this be handled?
I think there's a process for that today through our support. If you want to move, basically you want to move a Business Central environment to another AD tenant. I believe there's a process for that that can be handled. We see that sometimes with the multinational companies, or with mergers where the acquisition company had BC, but they want to move it to the new main organization's AD tenant and so on. So there's a process, and this is not different in that sense. But I would suspect, and you probably want to check us on the Yammer group on that, I would suspect that we won't do that until that environment you want to move is actually a paid environment, because there's no guarantee for any trial environments where the license is unpaid. So if the customer wants to sort of start paying for that environment after the trial and become a paying customer, then after that they can move the environment to another AAD.
Then there is a question: is this feature to run a partner app available globally for all partners, or is it only available from version 22?
So it's available now. It's been available for a few weeks. We want to do some excessive testing on it, but it's available now, and documentation is on its way. Now, whether it's available globally or not, well, globally in the sense of all the countries where you can sign up to a trial from the Microsoft website supports this. Meaning, if you're in a partner localized country, you can still not start a trial from the Microsoft website. We're still investigating if that should be possible, and load just a plain W1 version with sort of worldwide demo data. We don't have evidence to suggest yet that that is good. Maybe this feature could change that, actually, because now we know that partners can then be more in control of the experience from the get-go. So that's actually food for thought on our side. So let me actually take an action on that to discuss that internally if this changes that. So all the Microsoft localized countries will have this option right now.
And another question goes: after that app has been auto-installed with the trial, can the user remove it and go back to vanilla Business Central, or will it break or disallow app removal?
Let me just get that question. So after the app has been auto-installed with the trial, can the user remove it and go back to the vanilla BC, or will it break? No. So again, from a license perspective, this is just a plain vanilla BC. We are sort of unaware that your app is installed, except we of course know that we installed it, but from a system perspective. So your app should be able to be removed, and then it is just a plain vanilla trial, except your app could have modified the data somehow. Whether or not you want to, because this actually brings up another question we've had is, since the trial itself in evaluation mode is unlimited, how can I make sure that my onboarding or demo app is has a time limit? I don't want the prospect to be able to use or use this app indefinitely. Maybe depends on the nature of your app, but the nature of your app should be take the user through trial, bring them live, convince them to become a paying Business Central customer. That's the main goal of this feature, and bring them to a live productive state. Set everything up with whatever consultant handholding you need manually in between, but bring down that onboarding time. This is not intended. I'm sidetracking now. This is not intended to be a test drive of your whatever app that can bring some value. This is an onboarding experience. This is a trial and onboarding experience. So this is not meant to be a new test drive where you just say, hey, I have an add a field app, and here you can start it, dear customer, try it out and see how it works. No, that's not the intention. So if that's going to be the use of it, we probably want to find down ways to lock this down to sort of, for partners that are really doing it the right onboarding way. So coming back to the question of sort of protecting your IP, yes, it's up to you. If you want to say, it may be that the Business Central underneath is unlimited, you can use it unlimited as long as it's in eval mode, but I want to limit my app to 30 days. That's absolutely fine. As long as your app is a free trial type listing on AppSource or a free, it cannot be a contact me type app. I hope that was question enough. Oh, answer. I'm sorry.
Another question here. Is it possible to define the application family somehow? For example, if we have a customer who wants to try LS Central.
No, not at this point. We didn't sort of consider or want to sort of venture into the whole embed ISV solutions for now. If there's a need to do some of this, I'd love to have that conversation. So please reach out to me so we can talk about that. So we know there are a few of these situations, but we didn't want to go that route just now.
Another question goes, can I choose the country where I'd like to see the trial? Say I'm in UK, but I would like to see how it works for USA.
As long as your app that you load supports USA, then there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to offer this for a US prospect. Make sure that if you do that, that you've asked the customer which country they're in, because you may not know. So it's sort of your best bet to guess at where this specific user is located. What we're doing on the Microsoft website is that we're using the locale of the website, if it's ENUS or ENGB, to try to determine, is this a user that is likely to be located in the UK or in the US? And we use that to populate that value you saw in the country code. And we hope that then matches the AAD tenant country. If they don't, then it'll fail. So you can maybe either ask the user or do a similar locale specific thing of your website. So you can have an English US version and an English UK version of that page of your profiler. But most importantly is that your app also supports that country, and it's listed on AppSource as supporting US. But that should be no problem. You should aim for whatever you think your market is.
There's another question. Is this planned to be used only via the partner website? Or what about the Microsoft's own website trial?
Yeah, well spotted. So we actually, as this person actually says, this is the same capability that powers the experience you've seen on our US and UK websites. And that's actually also why we wanted to bring this to partners, because there's no need. I mean, that there's a lot of value in partners being able to use this capability, because partners know much more than we do how to sell Business Central. So we really see this as a way for bringing partners into the mix from the very first sign-in into Business Central, instead of starting a standard Microsoft trial and then finding a partner. Not to go down that discussion, but we wanted partners to have this capability on their own websites.
The new question here, Søren, that goes, I'm building a warehouse app that requires premium Business Central license. Would this trial give my prospect premium Business Central?
No. Short answer is no. It is still just a plain vial sign up. Actually, now that I say that, you have to test this out, because I actually can't remember. And sorry, just a weak spot in my memory. So maybe you can go in and change the experience to the full premium experience, because I actually think that the underlying license allows for both, also for premium scenarios. But you'd have to go in and set the experience. So you do that in company information, if I'm not mistaken. In company information, you can you can set if you want sort of the default essential experience, or you want the full premium experience. I think the license should support it, actually. But please try it out and let me know if it works.
And so there's one here. It's not such a question, but more meant as a feedback. So it goes, it's not a question, but it would be important for us to be able to specify more than one app in a sign-up context.
It's a good feedback, and it's the same to what we discussed before. So we're taking the feedback over time to see how much request there is for that. It could definitely be a viable scenario. One of the tricky things, just to go a bit technical again, is that we're like, when provisioning has been done of Business Central, of the environment, we then load the app that is specified by the app ID. This opens up for a new ballpark in terms of risk. Like, there could be the app could be in a faulty state. The app that we load could want to phone home to a key vault, and there's some configuration changes on that we can't check for. We can't check if the whole thing will go well. And the more apps you can install, the larger that risk becomes. And also the waiting time for the user also increases, maybe significantly, depending on what you do at app install time. So we want to thread carefully by taking those next steps and potentially load multiple apps. What we're working on is also finding a way, like, because you want to test. So imagine you now built this experience and customers are using it. You have your website profiler, everything works great. But now you want to push a new version of your app to App Source. Well, today, you can't test this until the app is live and has replaced the old one. That's, of course, not a good way to go in like, it's not a sustainable way. So we're working on a way for you to be able to test with a preview version of your app. So when you put your app in sort of preview mode, providing you somehow with a way to say, I want to test the flow now on a specific page on our website with the preview version of the app. So you can minimize the risk of something goes wrong, because we don't want to have you profile customers on your website, spin up BC, and then it fails because the app is somehow in some faulty state. So that was a long answer, but we want to get better at some of those surrounding things before we open up for multiple apps as well.
Thank you, Søren, and thank you everyone putting in some really nice questions for Søren during this hour. We actually don't have more questions. We do have a few minutes. If you have a final one, do put it in the Q&A window now. Otherwise, I think we would want to round off for today. So we do have a few final notes. Do you want to shift slide? Yeah. So as always, if you do have a question for us, both on this topic, but also all other type topics, do put it in one of the relevant groups in our Business Central Yammer group. You can see the link here if you are not registered. Then do request access if you are a partner. Continue to join the conversation on our Twitter handle. If you need resources, you can't remember a link or where to find things about Business Central, we have collected all the relevant links and resources on one page. So one-stop shop, and it's aka.ms/bco. As always, continue to submit your ideas on what features and functionality we should consider to add in any future version of Business Central on the BC Idea link. And make sure to join us in the upcoming Business Central launch event. As mentioned in the beginning, it will run live from March 29th. And you can register already today on aka.ms/bcle, and you will get an email with a registration link, and there will be more than 25 on-demand sessions about what's new in Business Central. And we will also host live Q&A sessions when we run the event live. And we will also have an overview keynote on the day where we kick off the launch event. For now, we have not scheduled or published any new Business Central office hour calls, and it's because we get into a month where we release Business Central April wave, and we will be very busy with directions events. We hope that if you are in the region of North America or Asia, that you are considering joining one of these events. We will be there with a lot of great news, and we will be back and answering questions in the Business Central launch event. And then later in April, we will start announcing the coming office hours that will most likely take place from May and forward. With that, I think we have maybe a new question. You just see it was thank yous. So thank you for that, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Søren, for taking us through the topic and answering all the questions today. Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you.